Hello, everybody, and welcome to Obux Presents. Today, Obux Presents, we interview authors and teachers from right across the mind, body, spiritual scene. And if you're looking at expanding your spiritual horizons and learning something new, then this is definitely the place for you. And please subscribe to our channel now. Today, we've got one of our most experienced authors and spiritual teachers here, Barbara Berger. Really happy to have her on. Now, Barbara is American-born, and she lives in Denmark. Am I right?
Yes, Copenhagen, Denmark.
Copenhagen. And she's the best-selling author of The Road to Power, Fast Food for the Soul, published in 30 languages. Are You Happy Now? 10 Ways to Live a Happy Life, published in 20 languages. And The Awakening Human Being, A Guide to the Power of the Mind. Her most recent new book, Find and Follow Your Inner Compass, Instant Guidance in an Age of Information Overload, was released in July 2017. And of course you can buy her books on Amazon, her website, and all good books retailers. When she's not writing, she works as a coach, helping people around the globe coming into alignment with their own true inner power. Welcome, Barbara.
Thank you for having me. I'm thrilled to be here.
The first thing I want to ask you, as a kind of veteran of writing books and experienced coach, finding and following your inner compass, what drew you to this topic, and why did you choose to write this book now?
Well, as you said, I've written many books, and all of my books are basically about self-empowerment. Self-empowerment is the most exciting game in town as far as I'm concerned. We all want to be in charge of our life. We all want to be happy. We all want to know how to do it. And so self-empowerment is the real deal, I feel, for all of us. And so what could be more cool than that you, I, and that every human being has an inner compass? So the inner compass, as far as I'm concerned, is one of the ultimate, or maybe the ultimate, self-empowerment tool. And because I work as a coach, and because I counsel people every day, and because I've written all these books, I have discovered that everyone is seeking guidance. Everyone wants to know, what is the way forward for me? What is the best choice in this situation? Should I go to the left? Should I go to the right? And so that's what finding and following your inner compass is all about. The fact that each and every one of us has our own internal personal guidance system that is 100% reliable, and that is at all times providing us with information about our choices and which way should we go. And so how does the inner compass do that? So that's, of course, the big question. So if I have an inner compass, if you have an inner compass, how do we get this information? Yeah. And the answer to that question is the inner compass is always providing us reliable information by means of our emotions. So the better something feels, in other words, when you feel a sense of ease and flow, when you feel happy, when you feel passionate, when you feel excited, enthusiastic, joy in your life, that's a signal from within, from your inner compass, as they call it, that you are actually in alignment with who you really are, your true self, the God force in you, whatever you want to call it. And then when you feel less than good, when you feel discomfort, negative emotion, frustration, anger, irritation, anxiety, all these so-called negative emotions, they're also signals from within that now you're not on course. Now you're not on course. So it's always there.
Yeah. So it's about reclaiming our own power, really.
Definitely. That's why I say it's basically, it's such a cool self-empowerment tool. And if you combine this with the fact that never before in human history have we been so bombarded from morning to evening. I mean, we're all online 100% of the time nearly. So we're getting information from outside of ourselves constantly. Do this, do that, how to live a happy life, how to be thin, how to be rich, how to be beautiful. But it's not coming from us. It's not our unique guidance. So people get really confused because of that.
Yeah, right. And I can be really confused. I can relate to that. So I mean, when you explained it as you just did, it sounds very simple. Checking with our emotions, and if we're in the flow, if there's that ease, then we're kind of going the right way. If there's that difficulty, that resistance, we go the wrong way. But so many times, I often feel I completely lost sight of that clarity. So say for instance, I feel very susceptible, like you said, to being bombarded with things. So someone else's opinion might set off a load of thoughts in my head, thinking, well, maybe I should do that, or maybe I should, do something else. Or there might be some resistance, but it might be coming from just a kind of bit of fear or lack of confidence or something like that.
Well, I think that there's many reasons why it's like that. If we go back, we need to go back to the beginning of each of us, in the sense that we're all born into a family, and each one of us has been programmed by the belief systems of our families, communities, schools, and we are programmed from a very young age to please other people. So we're taught that that our emotions don't matter. I mean, how many people have been taught that they have an inner compass? I mean, I've been coaching people all my life, and I still haven't met one that said, "Oh, my mom and dad told me that I had guidance within myself." So we're programmed from the beginning to seek guidance and approval outside of ourselves. So it's sort of the momentum of that. So this whole idea that it sounds very simple, this mechanism that you have an inner compass. And okay, I can feel what I feel, but we have been taught, and it's our unconscious habitual behavior to tune in out there. So it's actually really, really difficult to do.
Yeah, and I'd also say, like, the common cultural opinion that I see is that intuition or feelings are fundamentally untrustworthy, and rational analysis is really the only reliable thing we have when it comes to making decisions.
First of all, I would say it's important to understand that when I say the inner compass, there's some confusion about, a lot of people think I'm just talking about intuition. So let me just clear up that one first. So first of all, intuition is our ability, as far as I understand it, to plug into, the reality is that there is an infinite amount of information available to us right now, because there is only now. So all knowledge, all information, there are many thought streams. And so we can plug into, it's like we're radio, what channel are we plugging into? And we can plug into a lot of low frequency energy and negative thinking and violence and all kinds of stuff. And so how do we distinguish what we're plugged into? That's the danger of, we lack discernment. Whereas the inner compass, because it has this feeling barometer, does it feel good? Does it feel like, we know what love feels like. We know what anger feels like. They're different frequencies. I have a good example. One woman, she came to me, I was coaching her for quite a while, and she told me this story that one day she woke up and she lived in Stockholm in Sweden, and she got guidance. She thought it was her intuition that she should move to Gothenburg, which is another big city in Sweden. And so she thought she heard this voice, but she felt terrible, and was really scared. It didn't feel good, but she thought it was guidance, so she actually moved, and it was a disaster. So then once she started learning about the inner compass, she said, "Oh, if I'd only known," because I had actually internal guidance that this information that I was plugging into was not in alignment with who I truly am, with my higher self, with the great universal intelligence and all that. So that's the one part of this thing. What I'm talking about is actually that you can feel the frequency. And then if we go back to, if you can feel, there's a chapter in the book about the different frequencies. So if you go back to, I call it the great universal intelligence in my book, I'm not talking about the mental. That's what you just asked about. Our rational minds which are actually very limited in terms of comprehending the interconnectedness of infinity. I don't think there's any of us that can do that. At
No.
least I know I certainly can. But that there is a greater intelligence that, if we call it the God force, whatever we're going to call it, but that has created all of this and is orchestrating this amazing dance of life of which we are a part.
Yeah.
So in my view, the inner compass is our unique, personal, direct connection to the God force, which is capable of calculating. I mean, that is why, the wise say the good of one is the good of all.
Yeah.
That we, with our limited rational minds, we don't have the computer power to figure it all out, but the cosmic computer, the great universal intelligence, does.
Yeah. So in the example of your client who you worked with, who felt something very strongly in her, felt like she needed to make this move. But what you're pointing out is emotionally, there was a kind of or a negative emotional feeling, and that, out of all the signals and stimuli that were going on in her consciousness, that was the most important one that she overlooked, and kind of that's what you're teaching is teaching people to kind of get rid of all that noise and tune in.
The other thing that I notice when I coach people every single day, I also call it, besides calling it tuning into your inner compass, I call it truth telling.
Yeah.
Again, we are so strongly programmed, both in terms of our families, but also the collective belief systems, that it's so anxiety provoking. I notice also when people come with a problem or a situation, and I ask them, well, how does that make you feel? Like, you don't have to act on the consequences. You don't have to tell your partner. You don't have to tell your parents. Can you just get in touch with how you really feel and tell me? I'm not going to tell anyone. It's really, really, really difficult, because immediately people go to, if I really am honest and feel what I feel, then it has such consequences for me. And what am I going to do with that information? So again, tuning into your inner compass, it sounds very, very simple, but it's really anxiety provoking for so many people. So I have this little exercise in my book about daily try to be mindful and tune in and just feel what you feel, and just for yourself. But to start by just saying to yourself, I don't have to do anything about this information. I don't have to act on it immediately, because just to get used to telling the truth to yourself. It's really hard to do.
Yeah, well, absolutely. And so for someone listening to this, or someone who's feeling mixed up and confused and saying, I love this, I want to tune into my inner compass, that practice, that daily practice, just really being honest. How do I feel? Not like I should feel good or I should feel bad. Honestly,
that's
how do I feel?
That's a really, really good point. The inner compass never says should.
Right, yeah.
The moment you got the should thought, it's your mother, it's your girlfriend, it's your child, it's somebody's thought pattern. But because the inner compass is just the readout, it doesn't say should. I mean, if you actually think about, you're standing and you're talking to somebody, and if you asked yourself in this moment, what does this feel like? Does it feel loving, kind, respectful? What's the energy here? Does it feel aggressive? Do I feel safe? I mean, we know the answers to those questions. We do.
Yeah. So I've got two questions. First one is, what about things which you need to do but you're a bit scared of, or bring up resistance, so you're kind of, it's good to do in a compass, but there is a kind of negative emotion in, because you have to go outside your comfort zone to grow a little bit.
Well, you'd have to give me an example, because what is it that you need? If we really say need to do, there's not that many things.
Okay, say, I don't know, say, you might feel like you're an actor, but you get pretty terrified before you go on stage, or something like that.
Okay.
But maybe in terms of the bigger picture, emotionally, intuitively you're called in that direction, but there's times you
Well, I guess that what you're talking about again is the conflict between when we get in touch with what we really desire to do, our dreams, our hopes, as you say, and then the collective programming. What is it that makes a person nervous, for example? It's low self-worth, or again, or the way I look, or my weight. I mean, we're so, again, we're so outer. We've got so much outer referral. So again, we come back to, again, what is it that sabotages our ability to be in alignment with this inner compass? With, again, I call it a compass because I say it's like when it points north.
Yeah.
You know, you're in alignment with the God force in you. So again, so we still come back to, it's usually always our fear of other people's opinions of us, or their disapproval, or, I mean, even an actor would be the same. What if I don't look good enough? What if I'm not good enough? I mean, so it's, again, that outer referral thing. So actually the whole second part of this new book is only how do we deal with our fear of other people's disapproval.
Yeah.
And so it's such a major thing, because what if my choice doesn't please my partner, doesn't please my mother, doesn't please my family, and what are we going to do about it?
Yeah, because if we're really, well, what you're saying is, you know what, you've been skillfully unpicking, you know, that signal and noise, and like you know what you're teaching in the book and what you're working with your clients is unpicking what, you know, tuning into the higher guidance and all the lower messy stuff, and seeing it for what it is, but not confusing it with what you should be doing. But then the scary thing is, like, we like hold back and we stuff ourselves down for not wanting to hurt other people or displease other people in, you know, everywhere.
Well, it goes back to I start that section by talking about some of our collective belief systems.
Yeah. You
have to really go back to what I call the nature of reality, the setup here. The setup, the way it's sort of set up, the mechanism of life is that you're you and you're in you, and you have your thoughts and your beliefs which determine your experience.
Yeah.
And I'm me, and I'm in me, and I have my thinking and my feelings and my beliefs, and they determine my experience.
Yeah.
So each one of us has beliefs which determine how we interpret what's going on. So in other words, there's reality, something happens, and then you have your interpretation of what this means to you, and that's what you experience. So each one of us is separate, and each one of us has this going on within ourselves, right?
Yeah.
So if you have one event and you have 10 different people, you will have probably 10 different experiences.
Yeah.
There is no collective experience. It's subjective from each person, okay? Yeah. So when we understand that we're all, even though we're here together, we're all individuals experiencing our own subjective experience of whatever's going on, okay?
Yeah.
So if we understand this, we also can see that even if you and I are witnessing the same exact event, I cannot control your reaction.
Yeah.
Which means that I cannot be responsible for your experience. So we have to keep reminding ourselves when we feel that we're going to make a choice. And again, don't misunderstand me. I'm not saying we shouldn't treat our fellow human beings with respect. I'm not talking about that. But when we make a choice, if another person is unhappy about our decision, our pathway in life, or our career, or whatever, we can't control that person's reaction. That's their personal choice.
Yeah.
They could react in many ways to our choices. So that the feeling we're so over responsible for something which is out of our control.
You can't control their reaction, even if you're going out of your way to please them either.
No, exactly. And but again, and so don't misunderstand me. We do also have, again, and that's why I say when this whole thing about constructive communications with our fellow human, we do have, for example, we have a partner, or we have children, we have a family, we have shared projects And that's where it is so important that we are able to respectfully address each other and share our different views about how to deal with a situation best. That's something else. Okay.
So would you say that in those situations, our family or with our partner, our children, our work, if we're not honouring our inner compass and our true kind of guidance and desires, if we're not doing that and we're covering that up or doing something different to fit in with those structures, it's ultimately more sort of destructive to everyone than if we.
It's problematic. It really is. And I mean, I have, I do coach couples also, and I have my sort of Barbara Berger's 4 magic points for good couple relationships. And one of them is, for a couple relationship, again, we're not talking right or wrong, but there has to be a certain level of shared values and shared interests. So that's really what you're talking about. When people are too far away from each other in terms of their value systems, it's very problematic. I mean, for example, I had a couple where the one, was very set on that it should be a monogamous relationship and they should only have sex with each other. And the other one wanted to have an open relationship and they wanted to have sex with many partners. And again, not talking about what's right or wrong here, but they were not a good match because they were too far away from each other in their values.
Yeah.
So that's what I mean. There has to be, so that sort of covers your question about the inner compass too, because if your inner compass is guiding you in a direction where value-wise it is so far from the person that you're trying to live with, it will be more problematic, definitely.
But ultimately, maybe you're living a fuller life than if you both unhappily sort of never talked about your values, never brought up that particular value clash, and just kind of.
Well, that's why I always say that the secret here, as far as I can see, that we have to get real about the fact that we're all different.
Yeah.
We have to get real about the fact that we don't agree about a lot of things. Yeah. And if that's the reality, which it is, then constructive communications, in other words, how can we respectfully create a safe space where we can sit down and you can tell me how you feel we should deal with this, and I can tell you how I feel we should deal with this. And if it's something we're doing together, then hopefully we can find a workable compromise that we can do together. Yeah. And again, that's the fundamental principle of the democratic societies we live in. I mean, every person has a vote. You have one vote, I have one vote. There's no high and low. We vote for the people who we think represent our ideas. Yeah. And they go into the parliament or wherever and they sit and they discuss. And hopefully, we'll have a workable compromise. That's the deal. It's not like we're in agreement.
So what you're kind of counselling and advising is that we're following our inner compass. We're going to come up against this. We're going to come up against these disagreements, and we're going to come up.
Absolutely.
So it's about entering into that democratic spirit, and not about shutting the other person down. You're wrong, and my way or the highway.
No. Again, it's so important to understand that there's no universal solution. There's no perfect answer that's working for everyone. There's no one size fits all, because we're all different, because we're all evolving souls, because we're all at different places in our development, because we're all on a learning curve. So what your inner compass is telling you has to do with where you are. Yeah. What my inner compass is telling me has to do with uniquely who I am. So we're all getting different guidance also depending on who we are. And so the only way possible, I mean, you can also see what's going on in the world today. Everybody has an opinion about everything. Yeah. So that's the reality. The challenge is, can we have a respectful dialogue and find workable solutions for all the pressing issues that we have, and learning. So I'm often coaching people in constructive communication in how to actually talk to someone that you disagree with. I have, for example, in the book, what I call one of the main techniques I teach is called the sandwich technique. Yeah. And it's a way of talking where, in other words, you're presented with a request or a demand or a criticism or opinion. how do you address that in a respectful way and honor your own inner guidance? So I suggest the sandwich technique is the first part of your sentence is always that you say, I hear what you're saying, or you could be right, or I appreciate your interest. You start your sentence always by acknowledging that you actually hear the other person and that you appreciate their input.
Yeah.
So, and then you have a bridge to what you want to say. So then you say, and instead of saying but, because but is sort of, you say, and I feel differently about it.
Yeah.
So you start by trying to be inclusive, embracing that the other person is telling you something or coming with some input, and you hear it and you appreciate it, and I really think we should do something else, or the answer is no, or that's not for me, or I feel differently, or so how do we, and I remember coaching once a couple doing, we're having problems in their relationship, and the guy suddenly said to me when I presented the sandwich technique, he said, but Barbara, nobody talks like that. And then I looked at him and I said, that's the problem.
Yeah.
And then he laughed. He got his realization that was actually the problem. So then they started practicing this in their relationship, and they're doing quite well now.
I love that sandwich technique, and I love the first thing you said about it, about acknowledging that the other person is heard and seen. And do you think it's true that often it's not that the other person actually wants necessarily, is rigid and is stuck over. They just wanting to feel heard and seen is
exactly. Just think about it, to be acknowledged that okay. Yeah. I mean, but also you could say, because we have that, we go on the defensive and then we attack thing, and if you just sort of sit there and say, yeah, that's a really interesting thought. You could be right. You're not saying you are right, but you're saying you could be right. So you're opening to, okay, I'm willing to consider. Right now, I don't see it like that, but I'll think about it. I mean, if you listen to someone who actually talks like that, you also see that it's a person who's pretty. They really have good self-worth. They don't feel threatened by the fact that someone else has another opinion than they do. So there's a lot involved. I mean, if you listen, one of my great heroes is the Dalai Lama. If you listen to him, he gets asked all these questions about world affairs and the Tibetans and the Chinese, and he always starts with this, this very complicated issue. We have been struggling, all of humankind, with these questions. I mean, he does that inclusive thing, and no easy answer. And then, but for Buddhist philosophy, we believe, so he starts by, and I believe if we all sit down together, maybe we could find, so that's a person who's resting in the universal principles that we all have a right to be here.
Yeah, and he's using the sandwich technique.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He really is.
And he also said, he says, my religion is kindness, and so it's doing all this kindly. It's like I need to do this. You might not like it, but I'm going to do it in this, assert myself in as kind a way as I can, as opposed to,
But also you can say, if you go back to the inner compass and the frequencies, the highest frequency is love, kindness. And so when we're in alignment with love and kindness, we feel better.
Yeah.
So as he also says, the Dalai Lama, when you are kind and compassionate, you benefit. Whether or not the other person benefits, you can't really control it, but because you're in alignment with the God force, which is love.
So, and I'm completely in agreement with you. I think we need, we need to all be strongly connected to our own inner compasses, and like you said, we need to sort of reclaim our own healthy confidence, and stand strong in the face of all the different opinions. But so how do you advise or help people to kind of cultivate their tuning in and cultivate that confidence? Are there any other kind of ways that? Well,
as I said from the beginning, that I have this inner compass exercise, just to be mindful of, just to start again. No matter what we want to do or change, it has to start with awareness. Awareness is the key. So just for example, reading my book and thinking about these principles.
Yeah.
That's the first step, just to become aware of things. And it happens sort of naturally if you say, okay, this is an interesting thought and I'm going to try to be mindful of it. That in itself initiates change automatically. And the other thing is to remind ourselves, and again, I write about it in the book, about the basic democratic principles, that each one of us is a manifestation of the God force. Each one of us has inherent worth. Each one of us is a valuable piece of the puzzle of this universe. I mean, again, if you say the Declaration of Independence in the United States, it's based on that statement: all men are created equal with certain unalienable rights, among them the right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It is this, that God has created each one of us. That is inherent worth. That is, when we meditate on that concept alone, there is no high and low.
It kind of goes back to what you said earlier as well. We are all, equally divine and equally worthwhile, but also that idea of the good of one is the good of all. So somehow, if we're honouring our true selves or our highest inner compass, then we're actually helping everybody else as we do it. I mean,
it's also important to understand in that connection that we cannot see the end of all things. We don't have the long view. None of us do. I mean, for example, in coaching, I have learned, because I've done it for so many years, people come to me, they don't come to me because they're happy, they come to me because they're in crisis. And they come in and they sit down on my chair over there and they cry their hearts out. But I know that coming in the door, asking for help, is the start of a journey that when they're done with this, they're going to be different people, and they're going to be so much better, happier, more stable, more clear about who they are, all those good things. But if I would tell them on day one, they would look at me like I was totally crazy. But so we have to have a bit longer view about our own personal journey and the evolution of humankind.
Yeah, so it's a practice, and like building a muscle, and the more you do it in a long period of time, you'll get strong.
You'll get better.
Wonderful. So what I love about your book is kind of like the power of simplicity, because there's we could talk for years, lifetimes on different philosophies and mythologies, and what you're doing is stripping it all back to something very powerful and very simple. Kind of a big first step for someone is just reading the book. But if people wanted to work deeper or work closer with you,
there's two.
Carry on.
Two things I'd like to say here. First of all, I would say please go into to my website, beamteam.com, BEAMTEAM.com, and you can have a look around. And I'm offering at the moment a free ebook as it's called "The Mental Laws: Understanding the Way the Mind Works," as an introduction to the work that I do. So you can download that and have a look. It's a short little book. And the other thing is, I live in Copenhagen, but I coach people from all over the world because of Skype. We can do it, this great technology. So if anyone would like to work with me personally, just contact me and we'll figure it out, and we'll talk, and I'll do what I can to assist you on your journey.
Wonderful. And that ebook sounds the perfect complement, because the understanding how the mind works, because that really helps you sort out all the stuff that's going on inside you.
Definitely.
Barbara, fantastic. Thanks so much for coming on and being so clear and cogent about it all. And it's a pleasure. And I hope to we can carry on one day again.
I'm sure we will. Thank you for having me.